Hey guys, today we're going to discuss interval inversion, harmonic and melodic interval inversion, determining or creating intervals below a given note, transposition, chords, harmony, triads, tertian harmony as opposed to Martian harmony, dyads, power chords, shorthand notation for triads, and chord symbols for triads. Let's get to it. To invert something is to rearrange it in the opposite order or flip it upside down. So inverting an interval is the process of moving the higher note in an interval down one octave, or by moving the low note of an interval up one octave. The resulting interval retains the same letter names but in a different order from the bottom note to the top. This resulting interval also has a change in the interval number as well as the interval quality, except for perfect intervals. To determine the interval number for an interval after inverting it, subtract the interval number of the interval before inversion from 9. For example, if you invert a fifth, as shown here, subtract 5 from 9 to get 4. The result of inverting a fifth becomes a fourth. To determine the interval quality, the following rules must be observed. 1. A major interval becomes a minor interval after inversion, and vice versa. 2. An augmented interval becomes a diminished interval after inversion, and vice versa. 3. A double augmented interval becomes a double diminished interval after inversion, and vice versa. 4. Perfect intervals remain perfect after inversion, and vice versa. Notice how an augmented interval becomes diminished after inversion, and also notice how a major interval becomes minor after inversion. The inversion of intervals where the notes are stacked on top of each other and are meant to be performed at the same time is known as harmonic interval inversion. The inversion of intervals where the notes are not stacked and one note in the interval follows the other is known as melodic interval inversion. Up to this point, we've learned how to determine an interval above a given note. Interval inversion is useful in determining or creating an interval below a given note, which comes in handy when a change to a lower range is desired, such as moving music that is too high for an instrument or vocalist to a lower range. The following table is a synopsis of everything we just covered and can be used to quickly determine or create an interval below a given note. Let's take a look at the following example. If you're trying to create a minor 6 below D flat, start by looking at the table in the If you want this interval below row. In the column directly below the minor 6th, you'll find a major third. Write a major third above D flat, which is F. Move that F down one octave, which puts it below D flat. The interval between the low F and higher D flat is now a minor 6th. Let's do another one. To create a perfect fifth below G flat, look at the table in the If you want this interval below row. In the column directly below the perfect fifth, you will find a perfect fourth. Write a perfect fourth above G flat, which is C flat. Move that C flat down one octave, which puts it below G flat. The interval between the low C flat and the higher G flat is now a perfect fifth. Without using the table, you can follow this procedure. Suppose you desire a diminished sixth below C. Subtract the interval number of the interval you desire from 9. If you want a sixth below C, for example, subtract 6 from 9. So, 9 minus 6 equals 3. In a similar fashion, if you want a third below a given note, subtract 3 from 9, which equals 6, 4 from 9, which equals 5, and so forth. The resulting number from subtraction tells you the interval number you will need to write above the given note to get the interval desired below the given note once it's inverted, or moved down an octave. Now count 3 notes up from C, including C as the first count, and write a note on E, which is the third. If we invert the interval now, notice it results in an interval number of a sixth as we move the E down one octave. Next, we need to achieve the interval quality of a diminished sixth below C. According to the 4 inversion rules regarding interval quality, augmented intervals become diminished and diminished intervals become augmented when inverted. Since an augmented interval becomes a diminished interval when the top note is moved down one octave, or in other words, inverted, add a sharp to E to make it an augmented third. Now move that E sharp down one octave, which is the E sharp below C, and it becomes a diminished sixth below C. Since we desire a diminished interval quality below C, we need to create an augmented interval quality above C before inverting the interval. Transposition is the process of moving a single note, interval, scale, key signature, chord, or or chord progression, which is a succession of chords which will be covered later, up or down by a measured fixed amount. The measured fixed amount is defined by an interval, since an interval itself is a measurement of the distance between two notes, and, unlike interval inversion, can involve intervals other than an octave. A transposition can be performed by taking each individual note and moving them all by the desired interval, being careful to move them accurately by the same amount. In example 1, we see one note that will be transposed up a perfect fifth. We simply determine what a perfect fifth above the original note, G flat, is, and transpose, or move, it up a perfect fifth, to D flat. In example 2, we see two notes in interval that will be transposed up a major third. In example 3, we see a chord that will be transposed down a perfect fourth. In example 4, we see a chord progression transposed up a minor sixth. Note that if the music has a key signature, you will usually transpose the key signature along with the notes. Knowing how to transpose is critical for singers who need to change the key of a song that is out of their vocal range to a higher or lower key. It's also an important skill to know if you are writing for certain transposing instruments, like B-flat trumpet, that are notated in a different key than they actually sound. In fact, for many professional wind and brass players, transposing at sight while reading music is considered a necessary skill. Transposing is also necessary when moving a written part from treble to bass clef for a bass instrument. Intervals can be used to create chords. Chords are the building blocks of harmony, which is literally defined as notes simultaneously sounding together. While a melody is often considered the linear characteristic of music where single notes are performed one after the other, the study of harmony is vertical in nature and involves how simultaneously performed notes work and sound together, how chords are constructed, and why and how chord progressions work and their relationship to each other. A chord is commonly defined as a group of 3 or more notes played simultaneously. Triads are simple chords made up of only 3 notes, built with a third and fifth along with the root. They are an example of tertian chords, or chords constructed with stacked thirds. There are only 4 different types of triads. The formulas necessary to construct each of them are shown here. All examples you see as the root for comparison. The major triad consists of a major third and perfect fifth above the root. Let's hear how this sounds. The minor triad consists of a minor third and perfect fifth above the root. Here's how this one sounds. A diminished triad consists of a minor third and diminished fifth above the root. Here's how this sounds. And finally, an augmented triad consists of a major third and augmented fifth above the root. Here's how this sounds. Incidentally, a dyad is a relatively uncommon term for 2 notes that can imply a chord. For example, a root with a minor third above it can imply a minor triad even though no fifth is present. Since a dyad by definition is only 2 notes, many consider a dyad to be an interval rather than a chord. A common example of a dyad is a power chord on guitar that consists of a root and fifth and is sometimes denoted with the chord symbol shorthand 5, as in C5 for a dyad on C. An additional octave can and is often added above the fifth in a power chord. The shorthand notation for the 4 triads as well as their intervals and formulas are shown here. This shorthand notation is also used in chord symbols, a type of shorthand notation for triads in common use today. There are several different chord symbols for each kind of triad, and you must be able to recognize each of them. All of these examples use C as the root of the chord. To use a particular chord symbol on a different root, you simply change the note C to whatever the note name is of the root of the desired chord. Memorize these before moving on. Hey, thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like and leave a comment below if you have any questions. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you like the music you've been listening to, please be sure to check out my friend Pat Kelly's album, The Road Home, at this link.